Hey all, Alex here at your home of the Music Deep Dive, and today it's time for part 2 of the vinyl collection video. Hope you watched part 1, hope you enjoyed it. Going in alphabetical order, going through my whole vinyl collection. If you've not seen part 1, go ahead and do that. I promise you, you will enjoy some of the records that we talked about, and I'm sure some people are really going to enjoy the records that we talk about in this video, because we're going to be going into some really classic bands, or at least one really classic band that's actually probably going to dominate a lot of the video, if we're being honest. And that classic band, of course, is Bastille. Bad Blood. Let's get that fucking glare out of there. I'm joking, obviously, but Bastille are interesting. They're so fascinating to me. They are hated by a lot of people, I think. And then a lot of other people admit to them as a guilty pleasure. Again, I don't really believe in the concept of a guilty pleasure. I think you like what you like. Couldn't really give a shit less what most, people think about it on a wider level. But I think Bastille are a very competent group of people, especially I think sonically, this album really, really stands out in a lot of ways. I think it's a really, really great record sonically. I can understand people not being crazy about the songs and thinking that at their core they are a little bit substanceless, a little bit generic, but I don't know. I think maybe they are, and maybe they don't hold up to a ton of scrutiny, but sorry, stifling a sneeze. I do think that the sonic qualities and Dan Smith being a unique frontman really helped this album hold up. Again, this album, I think with their follow-up record, Wild World, I think at that point already their sound was not aging very well, and I think they knew it because they definitely evolved after that point. But I do personally think that they never topped this and probably won't at this point. I've not been crazy about any of their most recent music, although I do like Happier. I do like Happier as a song, the collaboration with Marshmello. So yeah, the band that I'm going to be talking about for the majority of this video, as you probably guessed, is the Beach Boys. Now, the Beach Boys are one of my favorite bands. I don't actually think that I had them on my video where I was talking about the albums that mean the most to me personally, but the Beach Boys are definitely a band. They were probably the first band that I got into after the Beatles, like a lot of young white boys probably have done over the years. But they've held up, and I think their music, especially if you explore the stuff after the surf era, after Pet Sounds, etc., 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 really holds up to repeated listenings, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff to explore there, which we'll kind of talk about. So they have a lot of personal meaning for me. I am not complete on them. I'm not complete on them by any means. I think if I were to guess, I had about 2/3 of their records. I think that's a decent estimation. So starting here, Surf and Safari. This is the Capitol Duophonic release from '62. Pretty. It's a strong debut album, I think, all things considered. If you look at what else was coming out during the era, you'll realize this is a somewhat unique sounding record, more polished than your average garage rock band, even if they do sound a little bit young for the most part. Not one of the band's better albums overall if you compare it to everything else in their discography, but pretty good all things considered. Now, I actually have 2 copies of this next one. This is, I'm jumping all the way to Little Deuce Coupe here from '63. This one, I have 2 copies. This one I got because it still has the hype sticker on it, which I think is phenomenal. Stereo copy. And the other one that I have here is, I believe this is actually a mono copy, if memory serves. So I have both stereo and mono copies of it. Little Deuce Coupe, again, this is it's a formative record in some ways, and it's a little bit of a compilation because about 5 of those songs were released in previous records. So not generally considered their worst album of 1963, but I think the new moments on it are quite strong. I was going to say Ballad of Old Betsy. Definitely one lyric about beating your car, which is kind of an allegory to beating a woman because they're comparing a car to a woman or whatever. That one line is a pretty enormous clunker, but Spirit of America and the B-side of the record is quite nice. Rest in peace to Craig Breedlove, the pilot of Spirit of America, who just passed away not too long ago. All Summer Long is the next record I have. I don't even remember why I have this copy. This is a Half Price Books copy that I got for $1. It is absolutely destroyed. You can see the record kind of falling out of the bottom here. Because I have 2 copies of it, I don't see the point in keeping that one. Here is the somewhat better condition copy here of All Summer Long. Easily their best album to this point. Just huge jump forward in production, in the qualities of the vocal harmonies and stuff like that. Just that first 3-song stretch alone, already the harmony stuff is not miles beyond what they did before, but definitely a very clear step forward. So very strong album. Beach Boys Concert, gatefold record with a little booklet here. Here's the booklet. I don't think I showed this very well, but here's the actual LP. It is what it sounds like. It is a Beach Boys concert. They overdubbed, I believe they overdubbed some vocals after the fact, and at least 1 or 2 of these songs are actually just the studio tracks with live audience sounds mixed in. But all things considered, it's pretty decent. Long Tall Texan is pretty fun. Papa Mau Mau. The Beach Boys were not really what I would call a great live band really ever, but it is nice to still have these kind of documents from when they were arguably at their peak, when it's like the classic lineup. So I think there's still value. There's still value to this record, even if I wouldn't say it's great per se. An album that I desperately need to get a better copy of, because this one is in pretty poor condition, and I'm pretty sure the record is warped. The Beach Boys Today. It's a phenomenal album. You really, again, it's cliched, everyone talks about it, but you really see the songwriting take a massive step up on this album. And again, it's not like Brian Wilson was ever a particularly eloquent songwriter or lyricist, or that he's talking about especially complex subjects. It's just the actual execution, whether it's the chord progressions, whether it's the arrangements, or the performances, the harmonization, the production. Everything just takes a massive step forward and combines to make these very simplistic songs feel very massive, very deep. Again, mostly talking about the slow songs, because stuff like Dance, 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 I mean, that's just a ball of fun right there, if we're being real. Pet Sounds. One of the only Beach Boys albums I have that is a brand new copy. This is a 2016 pressing. Yeah, what can you say? It's Pet Sounds. Pretty much an essential record to have in the collection. I don't know. I think without having given myself time to compose my thoughts on Pet Sounds, I'm not going to have anything to say that's not hasn't already been said 1,000 times. Again, I think you see the arrangements and the sonic ideas, especially, take a massive step forward from the previous couple of albums. And yeah, there's not much more to say. I think it is widely regarded as one of the best albums of all time for perfect reasons. Is it my favorite Beach Boys album? Yes, it wasn't always. It wasn't always, and it is actually a closer competition at the top than I think some people might think. But we'll get to that. We're skipping over Smiley Smile because I don't have that one and going to my pretty beaten down copy of Wild Honey from 67. Widely regarded as their like soul R&B album, which it kind of is. It takes hints from Smiley Smile more than I think people want to admit. In kind of the sparser moments, like A Thing or Two, for instance, I think is very, very taken from the kind of minimalist ideas of Smiley Smile. But absolutely, stuff like Wild Honey, obviously the I Was Made to Love Her cover, and Darlin' are very taken from kind of the Motown ideas that were going on at the time. Carl Wilson really digging into that. And yeah, nothing more to be said. It's really strong, a very underrated album in a lot of ways. Not that it would be, I'm not even sure if it would be a top 10 Beach Boys album for me, but I think it does tend to be forgotten in a lot of circles. And it's not anything major, but it's a lot of fun. And I think it's worth a listen for anyone who hasn't heard it. Next up, 2020 from 69. Some people call it the Charles Manson album, I suppose, because Manson co-writes one of the songs on here. This is a ragtag collection of songs. If the songs weren't so damn great for the most part, this would be a very middle of the road, bordering on bottom half Beach Boys album. I Can Hear Music, Be With Me. I mean the fucking Manson song, even Never Learn Not to Love. I think all of those songs are excellent, and the leftovers that they use. I Went to Sleep, I believe, is a Friends outtake. Time to Get Alone, I think that goes back to the Wild Honey sessions on some level. And then obviously the Smile outtakes to close the record. It's an album that should not be as strong as it is, given that it's a contract fulfillment album, but it really puts together a great collection of songs and really shows where they were operating at this point. As songwriters and as performers, you're watching Carl and Dennis both grow, Bruce Johnston getting to contribute a little bit more. And what it's all leading up to is Sunflower. There are some days where I prefer this album to Pet Sounds because of just how many different ideas are kind of encompassed in it. So I don't have the Feel Flows release on vinyl, Feel Flows being the kind of compilation archival set that includes outtakes from the Sunflower and Surf's Up sessions. I don't have it on vinyl, although I do have the CD box set. But oh man, you listen to just this album and then you listen to the box set and you realize how many different ideas were being thrown around. They were on some stuff. They were on a creative high during this period that honestly not very many other bands were matching at that point, and really not a whole lot have matched since. I'm not saying that every song on here is absolutely terrific, but I think even the songs that are not as highly regarded, like the Bruce Johnston songs, or I don't know, At My Window or something, I think they all have their place. They're all beautifully done. It's sunshine pop. It's sunshine pop at its most typifying, I suppose. And there's a lot of value in that. Absolutely. Surf's Up, baby. Iconic album cover. Fun fact, there is a statue of this sculpture, not the original, but a statue in Wisconsin. When I was in Milwaukee, I got to visit that statue. It's about like an hour away, and it was really humbling. A really, really beautiful thing to see. Surf's Up is an album that I think I always believe is stronger than it actually is. It is a little bit of a mess, especially sequencing wise. I think it's one of the worst sequenced Beach Boys records. But the songwriting, when it hits like no other Beach Boys album does. Obviously, the kind of ending 3-song stretch being the clear highlights. It's funny because it is, especially the album cover, really gives you the impression that it is a much darker album than Sunflower. But when you hear the tracks, especially like the remixed versions from the Feel Flows box set, you really hear kind of the through line. Like Surf's Up, I think in a lot of ways, the original mix, the proper mix, does sound very, very different from Sunflower, but you listen to that remix, which kind of strips away a lot of the darkness a little bit. You really hear that connection, which I think is really cool. So just kind of a fun little observation I thought I'd share. This is just a compilation, the best of the Beach Boys from 72. Very, very generic. I don't even remember what's on here. Oh yeah, this is like a collection of really early stuff. Some of their very earliest recordings, like some of the Hype Morgan recordings. So you have stuff like Luau and Judy, What Is a Young Girl Made Of, Karate. Some of those are instrumentals. Most of those you've never heard of. So yeah, I've never heard that. The Hype Morgan sessions, those, if you're not aware, those are like the original Beach Boys recording sessions from late 61, early 62, if memory serves, before they got the Capitol deal. They are very, very, very formative sessions. Only really interesting if you're like an historian or someone who's interested in, I don't know, something like that. Carl and the Passions. So tough. Great album. Great album. Very underrated by a lot of people. I think you really hear an R&B influence on this one, thanks to Blondie and Ricky. I think the band I don't think ever sounded better than it does on this record, just because of that backing sound. And yeah, no complaints. No complaints. Yeah, I used to think this was like a mid-pack Beach Boys album, but it's grown on me so much that it is borderline top 5 for me. It is really strong. Again, the Sail on Sailor box set, I wouldn't say the remixes helped put these albums in perspective, because I actually don't think the remixes are very good on that box set especially, but it did improve my opinion of them in a lot of ways. I don't know. Fire through these. Holland. Now here's an underrated album. This one is definitely top 5. I think the atmosphere on this record is absolutely unlike any other Beach Boys record. I think that, again, there's a mystery to it. There's sort of a hauntingness to it that you don't really get with even Surf's Up, really, at least not on a as consistent of a basis. The only complaint I have, I guess, is that Dennis is not really super present, apart from the songwriting standpoint, and then Brian is like barely here at all. But I mean, Mike, Carl, Al, and the Blondie Ricky duo really carry this record. And yeah, it's some of their best and most mature stuff, without a doubt. Continuing on, the Beach Boys in concert from it's from 73, right? I believe so. Another gatefold. Have a look at that. Yeah, they sound really good in this performance. Double record. Blondie and Ricky on this one. And yeah, they're just on fire. They're on fucking fire throughout the whole thing. some of it doesn't always work. Again, I think I say they're on fire. It is all relative. But this is the era where they're like flirting with like the Grateful Dead and shit like that. So they're getting a little bit jammy at times and stuff like Leaving This Town. It's a lot of fun. They were really, they were in a good spot at that point. And it's interesting to hear an audio document of that time. A period of time where, I don't know, like they were like kind of on the cusp of approaching something really interesting. And you just wonder what they could have done had they continued down that path, but they did not. Well, before we get to that, we get to Spirit of America, this compilation. This is the sequel to the Endless Summer compilation that everyone was really, really excited about back in the day. Here's the gatefold. You can kind of take a look at that. Yeah, this is sort of like the companion piece to Endless Summer, which really made the Beach Boys popular again, especially like their early surf music, and really caused the kind of, not critics, but like fans to like reevaluate them and demand their early music specifically. And that was the point where they really turned into a nostalgia act. Blondie and Ricky left the band at around the same time, so it was really kind of a perfect storm. So they heard that call. They heard that clarion call for being a nostalgia act, and they come up with this. 15 Big Ones. A lot of covers on this record. Again, gatefold. You can take a look at that. 15 Big Ones is a compromise of an album. Brian Wilson, after a couple of record absence, comes back. He wants to do a covers album. The rest of the Beach Boys want to focus on original music. The compromise is half and half. It doesn't really please anybody. It's not one of their absolute worst albums, but it is far, 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 far from their best. And then we just have kind of strange ones after that. Beach Boys Love You is one that I have a lot of affection for, although it has never been one of my absolute favorites. It's a lot of fun. Just kind of bizarre. Again, it's touching on this side of Brian, this quirky side that I suppose was always there, but was always a little bit reined in before. And now he's not. He's not reining it in. He's kind of going full bore. And he will do this again in some of his solo work, his stuff with like Andy Paley. After the fact, he just gets really weird. And you really, again, what he's doing is clever. Some of the like chord choices that he does are very intricate, but you kind of balance that out with these really, really just juvenile lyrics. I think you can tell Brian has a reflective side to him, but I don't think he ever, in some ways, I don't think he really matured past his kind of late teens. And I think this is an album where you can really hear that. So that's why it's never been among my absolute favorites, although it is still quite a bit of fun. All right, put these up here, get through the last few. MIU album right here. It's bad. It's very bad. No disrespect to Ron Altbach, who I believe just passed away. He was a co-producer of this one. Former member of Orleans, I believe. But there's not much here. There's not much here to write home about. It's pretty uninspired. It was a very conflict-heavy period in the Beach Boys' career, and you can really tell, I think, at times on this album. This is kind of a strange one. This is Dance, 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 which is a reissue of the Beach Boys Today, or at least part of it. They cut off the final song in the back of my mind, and then like the fucking full session for Big Daddy or whatever. And we're just kind of left with this, and also this fucking bizarre album cover, this outtake from the 2020 album cover sessions. I mean, just take a look at that right there. Not much more that needs to be said. LA Light album, an album that I actually defend quite a bit. This is Beach Boys Do Yacht Rock. It is very MOR in a lot of ways, but it's well done. It is probably the most pleasing Beach Boys album to listen to after Holland. And there's nothing here that's aggressively bad. I don't even think the disco song is that aggressively bad, or that bad in general. It's just kind of a bizarre choice on several levels. But some really nice stuff here. I like the Dennis songs quite a bit. And speaking of Here Comes the Night, here is the 12-inch version of Here Comes the Night. Yeah. That exists. That exists. Very interesting how the version on the album is actually longer than the official, like, the officially released single, so not the 12-inch single. I think the officially released single is like 4.5 minutes long, and the album version is like 10 minutes long. So, in any case, Beach Boys Self-Titled from '85 still includes that little hype sticker there. Another record that I defend quite a bit. I really like this album, in spite of myself. I understand the critiques. It is extraordinarily dated, but I don't know. I think the songs are catchy. I think Brian sounds kind of energized, at least in parts of this record, which is really cool, kind of inspiring. And there's nothing here that I think is a complete dud, that I think is just absolutely awful. At worst, I think it's just kind of MOR schlock. But yeah, well done. Well done on all counts. And you have the Dennis Wilson dedication on the back there. If it'll focus right there. And then we close off with their last album. That's Why God Made the Radio from 2012. This album, so all these other albums, you can find relatively easily for not all that much money. But That's Why God Made the Radio, you're actually looking at paying about $50 for. I think I got this one for like $35. It's an album that I have nostalgia for because I remember when it was released. I remember being excited about it because I was already a Beach Boys fan at the time. And it's better than it has any right to be, I think, is what most people say. A lot of it is outtakes, leftovers from different solo albums and stuff. I can think about 4 or 5 songs on here are outtakes from Brian Wilson solo albums like Imagination. There's a Mike Love solo album outtake on here. But it still works, and even with the auto-tune vocals, which I agree are over the top, I think it still works exceptionally well, at least in parts. The intro, Think About the Days, oh my god. Stunning vocals. Like, if it, you know what, I'm not even going to use the auto-tune critique, because I don't think it's super noticeable on that one. It's some of the best vocals they ever did on that one song, and they have a couple of moments that are at least close to that good on here. One thing to note, actually, as I look at this, is that the LP sequencing is a little bit different than the CD sequencing, which makes sense. So I think that's a fun little quirk. But yeah, so that is my Mostly Beach Boys collection. My Mostly Beach Boys part 2 of this video. So really hope you enjoyed. Part 3's, spoiler alert, is going to include a lot of albums from another very popular band that begins with the letter B. I'm sure you can guess who it is. So I'm not going to be cheeky anymore. Really hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you next time right here at your home of the Music Deep Dive, and take care.